Alright, hey everybody, Mike Manaven here. Today is July 5th, 2020. Hope you guys are all doing well. Congratulations goes out to Bryson for winning latest PGA Tour event out in Detroit today, the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And there was a situation on the golf course that he didn't hit his wedges very good, and Jim Nantz asked Nick Faldo to comment a little bit with Trevor Immelman as well. So I wanted to put those on for us. We're going to watch them, and we'll talk them through and see what happened. So here's the kind of the last straw that brought up that shot.
Still trying to get a long distance on it.
Man, I don't know. It's the right distance. It's just like a little. I think it's because the disappointing again. It's the 20-footer, but like that should be going at 10 feet.
Graphite, modern graphite in Wedge.
So Bryson's complaining of hitting a shot not close enough. Happens. Tour players complain about shots not getting close enough all the time. He thought it should be 10 feet. It was 20 feet. Good distance control is fine, but just didn't button it. It happens. So he's talking it through with his caddy. And then Nick decides to say this.
Yes, I feel that he doesn't need it. Good old steels, at least you know it reacts the same every time.
So steel reacts the same every time.
Feeling that the graphite, I'm sure they would argue it, that if you absolutely button one, middle of everything, for me, it used to feel like he went forever.
When was the last time he played with a set of graphite shafts for any considerable amount of time? He never did. He might have tested them once or twice, getting fit just to try it, whatever. Never has. Never played with it. Never developed a relationship with a manufacturer in order to actually get a graphite that fit him, maybe.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of variables involved in it. So he said that, and then said this.
Steel shafted wedges to try.
So he harped on it again.
A couple of sets of steel.
So we've got to make the assumption that since Bryson is Bryson, he's already gone to this level of sophistication, and he's tested a bunch of stuff. I know firsthand from the Cobra guys who've told me he tests everything. He'll test the ladies' sets that are going in the demo day bags. I mean, he wants to try everything in order to eliminate a variable. So he's one of the best testers in the world because he can give you feedback because it swings like a robot. But here, a few holes later, Jim asked Bryson, asked Faldo to give him some space and have him talk it out. So let's watch this together.
Nick and Trevor, give me a little bit more about your idea here about changing shafts in his wedges. You think it'd be beneficial to Bryson?
I think, the science of golf shafts is absolutely amazing now,
But
personally, from hitting graphite shafts, in short cuts, you don't need any help. All you want.
Help? What does it mean by help? Is what I'm really concerned about.
It's the consistency of the release.
Consistency of the release. The release of what? Now, this is going to sound like I'm picking on Nick. I might be. But the fact of the matter remains, he's a player trying to define another player. That's a dangerous, and that's what he's paid for. That's a dangerous rope to tip. So, he put it out there. I'm going to kind of end it.
Absolutely trust that every single time when you strike it, it comes out how you intended it.
So a player on tour wants a consistent product in their hands. Okay, we're together. We're on the same page.
I strongly feel or think that Bryson's with a graphite, when he hits one super solid, it just comes out pure.
When you hit it solid, it comes out pure. Shouldn't every club that you hit solid come out pure? But I digress.
Long. I mean, how many times in the last 4 weeks, all his misses have been long.
Agreed. He's hit balls really far. Bryson's hit balls really far. He's done that all week off the tee. You're not complaining, but obviously irons need to be more precise. I get that. However, are you saying that it's the club club's fault? Let's continue.
Way more than coming up short and can't believe it fell out of the sky.
If it fell out of the sky, it might have too much spin. Okay, fine.
90% of them have gone badly long, so I would have thought, hey, get a couple of different steel shafts. You can get on your launch monitors, what have you, and check your spins and everything. But
you don't think he's got on his launch monitors and checked out his spins and launches with the clubs he currently has and has decided that these are the best ones for him? Do you honestly believe that he hasn't gone through this voracious testing protocols that he has? I mean, he shows up to tournaments with 2 launch monitors and a camera. He's got a camera-based launch monitor and a radar-based launch monitor. He practices on gears at Dallas National and at Chris Como's house, and he practices with force plates. So I think he's covered. However, let's continue.
I would have thought that might be a good help.
The other thing that throws a wrinkle into the situation is the one-length clubs. So his short irons are so much longer than regular short irons.
Yeah.
Trevor, he's won on tour a bunch of times now. Won the U.S. Amateur. Played really good golf. All with one-length clubs. You don't think he's made $5 million this year? You don't think he's been doing one length for about 8 years now, 7-8 years. Well before his amateur career, he was doing it in college. I think he's got the one length part down, and they're not that much longer. Relax.
That's something he's got to deal with.
He's been dealing with it. He's been kicking ass.
And his shafts have no deflection, as he called it, no bend.
Oh, no deflection, no bend. Sorry, Nick. You're wrong on that. Every shaft has some bend. Question is the amount of bend, and can you find a shaft that fits you based on the correct amount of deflection and droop, which you're calling bend. I get it, but you need to define what deflection is, because I don't think you know how to use that word properly.
In the metal, so it comes out with that spring effect when you get...
Spring effect? It's a piece of steel at the bottom of a graphite shaft that has 56 degrees of loft that he applies a big force to it and the ball goes far. Where's the spring?
Get everything right, so that game's amazing. When you look at, we have the good old true temper shaft, which many of us started with, which is probably 60 to 70 years old, the design of that. Good old.
Yes, the dynamic shaft is about 60, 70, 80 years old. I'm not exactly sure, but that profile has not changed. It's turned into the dynamic gold. It's turned into the X7. It's turned into many, many products, and it's a baseline shaft that is very popular throughout the tours. However, Bryson's not a baseline guy. He's an outlier at one end of an extreme. I think we can agree on that. Therefore, why would you attempt to think that a baseline shaft could fit an outlier? That's ridiculous in its own right.
Dynamic, when they went to dynamic gold, which so many of us have used. The other important thing about golf shafts is like your own DNA. Once you
Yes, golf shafts are like your own DNA. Okay.
found a shaft that matches your swing tempo and how you release the club, how you release the shaft rather.
Yes, let me help Nick out. I kind of agree with what he's trying to say here. Once you find a shaft profile that fits you, you stick with that profile. You may try other manufacturers' versions or change the stiffness within the shaft area slightly, have a stiffer tip, have a stiffer butt section. Fine, I get that, and you don't deviate too much. However, and we'll get into this, Bryson's an outlier. He's really at an extreme, so you can't believe that he would fit into a product that everybody else would fit into. He might, but guess what? He's tried that shaft and he didn't.
Don't change too far from it. Once you've got close to that, you can mess around finding shafts that are just a little bit softer, a little bit stiffer, but don't go off at a tangent looking for something completely new. Because because it's your tempo, it's your golfing DNA.
Which you just have pointed out, he's changed his whole swing to swing 12, 13, 14, 15 miles per hour faster. You made a whole clip yesterday about how the guy he played with, by the time he took it to the top of the backswing, Bryson finished his swing. Okay.
I will say this, Nick, if he does find a way to dial those wedges in, the rest of the golf world better look out.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Again, as I was saying, hey, look at the positives. If he finds a way to take it to wedge way up to the level of, take it up to the level of dear old Tom Kite moons ago, everybody in serious trouble.
No doubt.
I think they already are in trouble.
So I totally agree with that statement that, you know, he's going to figure it out. And here he is on the 72nd hole figuring something out because he was 95 yards away.
Yeah, I'm 366 earlier today. This was 367. Exclamation point just hit in there to 2 feet. Don't know that wedge, Trevor. That's pretty scored in.
So Bryson finishes up on the 72nd hole to hits it at 2-3 feet and you know, raises trophy and wins. Some reason that shaft worked on that shot. So we've covered all the stuff he said, and I wanted to highlight this because it's not a strength of his. We get that it's not a strength of his, but he's working on it and he's trying to figure out you know, different groove configurations with the golf ball he's using, with the shaft, with the grip, the length. I get it. There's a lot of variables he's trying to work out and make sure that he gets the most consistent trajectories going on. But there's a couple things we need to look at. And what I'd like to do is look at his progression of his set. So when he first came out on, actually in his amateur days, he was playing the C-taper shaft. So C-taper in red, this is an EI curve. It shows the butt of the club, how stiff it is. The butt section here in red, it's a pretty stiff tip. Gets a little stiffer as it goes down the grip, and then it tapers down in a constant taper, hence C-taper. So the shaft kind of has a very straight taper profile and just comes up a little bit at the end there. So I would classify that as a stiff butt section, kind of a stiff midsection, and a stiff tip section, relatively speaking. So did very well with that with his amateur clubs, then with the first few sets of Cobras, really did well with that. Okay. Then he went to the Modus 130X. So this is what that looks like. So this is a softer butt section than he played prior, a stiffer midsection, and a softer tip section. Did very well with this. Actually won on tour with this, won the John Deere with this. And decided this wasn't good enough. And then he started adding some size. What was the next shaft he went to? You guessed it, the Dynamic Gold X7. So this is the shape of the X7 profile. Stiffen the butt section, soften the midsection, stiffen this tip section. So it goes down in the midsection. So now we've played 3 different shafts, kind of a constant one in the middle, a soft one in the midsection, and a stiff one in the midsection. Start all 3 of them. So where does that leave us today? Well, now he's playing this LA Golf shaft, bad rebar wedge shaft, you know, in his clubs, version 3. So most golf clubs, when I grew up, a 6.5 shaft was a stiff shaft and a 7.5 shaft was an extra stiff. And this is the chart that we go on. So you can see this is a frequency chart. If you look at the chart from the lower left, 2.0 would be a very soft flex shaft. In today's range, a 6.5 or a 7.5, somewhere in the 7.0 range is an extra stiff shaft. So the CPMs on this shaft is 372. So if you look at 372 and you move over to 37.5 inches, you get not 1x, not 2x, not 3x, not 4x, but a 5x shaft in stiffness. So he's got a Texas rebar wedge, hence the name. So it's super stiff. However, it still has deflection and droop. So just to highlight that, deflection of a golf club, this is one of my C-taper shafts. deflecting the shaft here. Now if you can see the line here, the club head is slightly ahead of the extension line or the deflection line, and that measurement can be measured in millimeters. This one happens to be 7.91 millimeters. And we can also reverse this and look at it down the line and look at how much toe droop does this shaft have. Now every golf club, because of the design of the shaft and the center of gravity being offset of the shaft center, is going to have the toe go down to some degree. In this one it's 23.98 millimeters. So those numbers with the same swing for 3 different shafts will react differently. Here's a fitting I did a while back. On the left is a Project X 6.5 extra stiff shaft. The middle is the Modus 130, which Bryson played, and here's a C-taper shaft extra stiff. So you can see that the amount of deflection the shaft has, the higher the dynamic loft is going to be. So this middle shaft here, where you had the most amount of deflection, the face added the most amount of loft. And with the one that you had the least amount of deflection, you had, pretty close to the lowest amount of loft. These two are pretty close to each other. There's a few other variables involved, but you want to be able to hit 10 shots and have the tightest margin of error here, or the tightest deflection. As a fitter, you want to have the least amount of deflection and the least amount of droop in a shaft in order to maximize the transfer of energy. You don't want the shaft bending out of the way, and you also want that thing to deliver the same amount of deflection, so you send the same amount of dynamic loft as the player wants to. Now, it's not always a 1-to-1 ratio. That the stiffer the shaft, the more consistent the dynamic loft is, because the stiffer the shaft, the more consistent the deflection is. Not always, because these are 3 stiff shafts here. These 3 extra stiff shafts that perform differently. It matters where the stiffness in the shaft is. So, with all that said, he's got the Texas rebar in his hand by LAGP Shafts, and they're a great manufacturer of shafts, and they can put the stiffness in the shaft wherever he wants, and they've been working on him to get it. So the fact, I've hit that shaft. It's a wonderful shaft. I'm just trying to say that it doesn't matter the material difference of the shaft, because you can use multi-materials in a graphite shaft that you can't do in a steel shaft. You can have tungsten weaving, you can have different types of fibers, you can change the direction of the fibers, you can play more tricks with the graphite shaft to your preferences than what can you do with the steel shaft. You can change the wall thickness, you can do that with graphite, add more layers. You can change the stepping pattern in a steel shaft. Well, you can put different layers in a graphite. You can make certain sections thicker and thinner to change the energy transfer, and you can change the wall thickness. Wall thickness, stepping, and with the thickness comes the weight. But with graphite, you can actually make them just as stiff but lighter. So you have a better strategy with trying to manipulate the shaft more different ways with graphite. Now it takes somebody smart enough, like the people at LAGP, like Bryson, to say, hey, I want this, and this is why I want it, because I want to get the least amount of deflection. Absolutely, Bryson's been on record saying he wants the least amount of deflection at impact. You're going to have some, but and he wants the least, which I applaud him for, and he's on the right page. You realize that a steel shaft might deflect more. That's an inherent problem. Now he's going to have this wobbly shaft at the bottom, which is going to make it even more difficult to control the dynamic loft. So that's not a quick rant, but it is a rant, and I wanted to put this out there because I thought it was very important to get this data available for you guys. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment below. But thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.